So let's kick things off with one of the big debates, I think really over the last couple of seasons, since the preseason has gone to 3 games. It's been really interesting to see what trends develop amongst coaches as to how you play your stars.
Right.
Because I think the general rule in the old days was 4 games. You'd play them a little bit in the first, a little bit in the second. The 3rd game was the official dress rehearsal. Many times you'd see starters play into the second half.
Correct.
And then they were in mothballs until the season.
Right.
Nobody played in week 4
right.
unless you were fighting for a job.
Yes.
So I think that was the general consensus. But now it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if there is a trend, the trend is just to cut way back on playing time for all your starters.
Yeah, I definitely think that is the case. I think we're seeing guys play the most in game 2. I know I'm still thinking of this as game 1 for the Browns, even though it's in game 2.
Right.
But in the traditional game 2 now. But I think when it comes to veteran quarterbacks and proven quarterbacks, and even though I would kind of leave Deshaun Watson off that list because he barely played in the last 2 years.
Extenuating circumstances.
But guys like Mahomes and Rodgers and guys like that, like I would leave it up to them.
Yeah.
They know their bodies. They know what they need to get done. But Patrick Mahomes has traditionally played in the preseason.
Well, I would say if there's a trend bucker, it's Andy Reid.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, last year we saw Andy Reid play his starters well into the second half.
Yep.
Late in the preseason, which typically you don't see.
Right,
Why
right.
take that risk? But he's looking at it, and Andy Reid, I think, oftentimes does come at things from a different angle, and oftentimes he's right. He's kind of the new age, even though he's older. I think Belichick used to be that guy that everybody would look to and say, what the hell's Belichick doing over there? Now I think Andy Reid is the guy.
100%.
They're all wearing bracelets. What would Andy do?
Man.
And I think he's got it right. I think you want to knock all of the dust and rust off of your starters, play them significant playing time in the last preseason game so they slingshot into the regular season and there's no rust.
I like the slingshot. If we've watched Interstellar, Matthew McConaughey uses the slingshot around gargantuan.
Sure.
Right? And you pick up some time. What Kansas City does better than anybody is start the season off red hot. You go back and look at the stats of Patrick Mahomes in the passing game in the first 3 or 4 weeks. Their guys, he's throwing up 300 yards, and that's because he's getting work in while everybody else is just chilling. They don't really necessarily think about injuries like this. And I was listening to Colin Cowherd, who was he's going through a tough time right now.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
taking L's. But he did say something that I actually liked. He said, Patrick Mahomes, when you have a quarterback like that, everything else is secondary. Like, you can deal with holdouts, injuries, people not showing up. Maybe you
Lack of
starters. They played 8 rookies last year on defense. And guess what? As long as Patrick Mahomes is ready to go locked and loaded with Andy Reid, it doesn't matter. So he says, I'm going to play my guys, and I can have a market advantage over the people who are just sitting there, guys. And they understand something in Kansas City. They have the best home field advantage in the game. And they, from the jump start, say, we want home field advantage. And to do that, they go and they get it done the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the year. And then they're already up 2 games on the next guy.
I have changed my mind on this over the years. I, for a while, was a don't play the guys guy. And now I'm a play the guys guy. Now, not to the point, you don't need to overdo it. But I definitely want it. The only guy I would not play on the Browns is Nick Chubb. There's no reason to play Nick Chubb.
Right.
There's just no reason.
Sure.
And he doesn't need to
because
develop.
Because what he does is so reactionary anyhow.
I don't need it. Everybody else, including Watson certainly, and some people might say, well, why do I got to play Myles Garrett? Well, Myles Garrett's playing with a bunch of new teammates.
Sure.
That whole defensive line is completely different.
Chemistry.
They got to develop chemistry.
Yeah.
I want them coming out, as G just said, I want them coming out week 1 and firing on all cylinders. I think Kevin Stefanski has underplayed guys in the first couple of years. Yeah. I hope he's going to do it differently. There was talk that the starters are going to play both these next 2 games, and I think that's good. I think everybody but Nick Chubb should be out there.
Was there talk that they're going to play the next 2? Because Jim Donovan,
Yeah.
leading up to the first preseason game, this was before the Hall of Fame game last week, came on our show upstairs on Channel 3, and he laid out what looked like the game plan for Watson in the preseason. He said no snaps game 1. He would play in game 2.
Yeah.
He would then not play in game 3 and then play again in game 4.
Oh. Or
So-
maybe I thought I heard he was going to play in games 2 and 3, but I could have missed.
Yeah. Now, when
Understood.
Jimmy says something, I
but he's
usually say he's
he
so
knows the
plugged
team,
in.
yeah.
You know, he's the voice of the Browns. He gets a lot of that. Now, could they be telling him something and then they decide to change their mind?
Yeah.
Entirely possible.
Well, he may not want. Maybe he doesn't want him to play against the Eagles.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know.
He said
I think they said
nobody's
the reason
playing
he wasn't
against the
playing
Eagles.
against because they're going to see them in practice against them in the joint practices, and they'll
Right.
kind of get a sense of where they are
Right, that's true.
and their standing. So if that's the plan, I'm okay with that. The thing I don't want to see is the Browns come out in week 1 against Cincinnati and look awfully rusty.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that could have been kicked off in weeks 2 and 3 in the preseason, it's still lingering. And let's face it, the vast majority of NFL games are one-score games.
Yep.
That's
You know,
right.
that means there's one play here or there that swings the vast majority of games. I would rather take the Andy Reid approach and say, my guys are not going to be unprepared. They're not going to be shell-shocked. They're going to, by the speed, they're all going to be up to speed, and we're going to have an advantage in week 1. Any advantage you can find, take it.
I'd like to see Watson throw at least 20 passes in the preseason, if not more than that.
It's a good number.
I would 20 to 30 passes.
I'd be
entire season?
closer to 30.
entire preseason, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'd be closer to 30.
I need
Yeah.
about 30 something.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
because here's the thing for him, he keeps saying, they ask him all the time, how do you think you throw? Or are you still got some of the rust on you? He's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know. I don't know if I got it or not.
Yeah.
And that just tells me any player is just getting out there, getting your feet wet, but you want to see success. You want to see a couple shots going down, and then you can say, okay, because in my mind, he still has a little bit of doubt.
I agree with that.
He's
Build
still-
his confidence up in the
Yeah.
preseason.
He's still got a little bit of doubt in his head. Like,
How could you not?
Can I get back to? It's, like I compared to one year, in baseball, I was batting like 475, and then took that step and went to my junior year, and I traditionally start slow. But this time, I was starting a lot slower than I was. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, this is cool. I can get to it. But I needed to get some hits. I needed to get on base. Like, after a while, it's just like you start to compound that thing and you think, okay, I need a little bit of success. Just let me find some success here. And it happened last year in Jacksonville where he came out the first series. He threw it to Anthony Schwartz once. He dropped it, came back again. He fumbled the football.
Yeah.
I would like to see him get a scoring drive, the first drive, and people will go,
Absolutely.
okay,
Something
all
to
right.
build on.
I can't worry about they shouldn't do that to make the fans feel better.
No.
But it's about making him and the team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, Bull, in baseball, you've
Yeah.
heard a lot of times veterans, when they get like into 33, 34, 35,
Yeah.
and you talk to them in spring training, many of them will say the same thing. I don't know, is this the winter I got old?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I mean, the ones that are very transparent and forthcoming will
Right.
say that out loud.
Yeah.
The ones that won't admit that they're asking that internally are lying.
Yeah.
Because
That makes sense.
It just, we know what the human scale is. We know where you peak. And you know that at 33, you're on the downside. So it's only human nature. And I'm not saying that Watson's that old. He's not. But he's a guy who's fairly far now removed from his last MVP caliber season.
Yeah.
Two
and the
years,
further
right?
away
Right.
he gets from that season, the more doubt that creeps in.
Sure. He
And
played
he's
with
only
no
human.
confidence last year.
I know
that
he
was
did.
very
And
clear.
Bull, I think that when I look back at what he did in his 6 games, I think that it was really not so much a product of sitting out as long as he did.
Yeah.
It was more a product of him not looking pretty bad the first time he hit the field.
Yeah.
Like, those doubts and questions instantly start creeping in.
Yeah.
I want to erase doubt. I mean, let's face it, we all agree on this, and all of your experts across the NFL will agree on this. Deshaun Watson is driving the bus for the Cleveland Browns, period. If he has a great year, this team can have a great season. If he is subpar and unimpressive, it's a wrap. This team will not win anything without him having a great year. So priority one for Stefanski and the Browns organization should be getting this guy on time, getting his routes tight, his throws tight, his decision-making process back to an elite level. Get this guy shined up and ready to go for Cincinnati because it's going to take his best to beat the Bengals.
And if it deviates from your original plan a little bit, I would like to see him come in and say, "Hey, Deshaun, we're gonna play you this game, after that game, we'll evaluate how much more work you need.
Based on how he plays.
Yes. If he says, I need some more reps, I
yeah, then I let him play.
Then you let him play.
Yeah.
Then you let him play, and then you figure it out.
And the Browns will have an advantage because even if Joe Burrow plays, he's going to be rusty because he's not going to play at all in the preseason.
Is that already been determined? No play at all.
I'm
for the
just
preseason?
assuming.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that for sure. I'd be stunned if he played in the preseason.
It seems highly likely he's
Yeah,
not.
I don't
Gonna
even
take a
know
snap.
for sure he's going to play week 1. I was texting with one of the Bengals beat reporters. He says, I think he's going to play week 1, but I don't know. That's a sure thing. And so we'll see. But
how much do you play? Let's just do the first team offense and the first team defense. How many drives do you want the first team offense to get in the remaining 3 games?
how many drives?
Well, let's go, instead of doing first team, let's go player by player here. Let's do. I know we can skip Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
But Deshaun Watson, let's start with him tonight.
Yeah.
Jay, we'll start with you. Go around the horn.
Yeah, I think for him it should be 6 to 8 drives and 30 passes
Tonight.
for the rest of the preseason.
No.
If we're talking about just tonight,
I
want to see him a half tonight. I don't want to see him a quarter.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him 1 drive. Because
I think it might depend on how well he plays. Or like I could see if he looks phenomenal in the first drive, them just saying, all right, that's it. Leave feeling good there. I could see them doing that.
I'd like to see it repeated and build on that confidence.
I think Coach Stefanski can do wonders for Deshaun Watson. Before I came in and I said 2 series, but when you said a half, I said, you know what, you might be right in that. Because think about it. If he has sustained success and he could go out there and the Browns are moving up and down the field, I don't care who it's against, you got to realize you're rehabilitating the quarterback, the guy that really counts. The rest of the people, they'll get it and figure it out. But for him, I would like to see him go up and down the field and think about that boost of confidence that not only gives him, but the rest of the team to be like, hey, we got what we thought we had. Let me show you.
That's true. There would be a rub-off factor if he plays a half and say leads them on 2 touchdown drives and doesn't throw a pick, throws a touchdown and looks to be in control of the offense.
Yeah.
I think that is infinitely more valuable than if he comes out on the first drive, takes in the distance, touchdown, and comes out.
Yeah, I do too.
It's a prove-it league.
Right? Yeah, I mean, if they're not going to play next week and they're going to play against Kansas City instead, then it doesn't make sense to play a half now. Because I would think play a half next week. But
yeah, I don't. I mean,
by the way, for the defense, forget about this week because Washington doesn't have a quarterback. But I think for the defense, I would play the starters as long as Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are in the game in weeks 3 and 4.
Yep.
Because those are 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league.
I like that a whole
And they're
lot.
totally different types of quarterbacks.
They are.
And I think it would be great experience for the first team defense to play against those.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I hope they do that.
Yeah.
And I want to see Shelby Harris. I want to see Dalvin Thomas. I want to see what it looked like.
Sure.
Yeah.
And plus,
the combinations look like.
Again, you're potentially, and certainly the first 4 is true, your number 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think 6 and 7 defensive linemen are all new.
You're right.
On the depth chart.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at
Myles
what they have
Garrett
coming back,
may be, but when it's all said and done, outside of a couple of guys at the end of the bench, the only returning guy that plays any significant time, especially early in the year, with those other 2 guys hurt.
Have you guys? Have you talked a lot about the injuries?
Yeah, but we have G and Earl worked up about it. To me, when it's that far down the depth chart, I'm not worried about it. Right. Especially when they bring this guy in yesterday from Seattle, a very experienced, talented player.
How is he still available? By the way,
I asked the same thing.
When I looked at his numbers, I knew the name.
Yeah.
But I had to refamiliarize myself with his career. And I looked at his numbers. I'm like, I remember this guy. The more I read about him, I'm like, this guy's a good player.
Yeah. Did you see his PFF grades?
No.
17th overall as defensive tackles last year, and the 5th highest graded defensive tackle against the run.
What's the black mark?
I mean, I don't know.
He's a little older.
He's old.
He's 32.
He's 32,
right? 32.
But he still had But last year, the pass rush grade isn't great, but we're not asking him to do that. What was his run grade last year? He was 5th in the league.
Wow.
I mean, a 77 run grade last year.
Tyvis told us yesterday, and he played with Shelby Harris in Denver, that this offer was made quite a while ago, and he was just waiting around until he
didn't want to do the whole camp.
That's according to Tyvis.
No, that makes perfect sense.
At 32
and that
years
explains
old,
something to me. Now, what's interesting to me about this, and I immediately thought about last year when they picked up Pochich, same week, by the way. It was after the first preseason game.
Yeah.
And Pochich didn't move the meter for anybody. We're like, who?
Yeah, right.
Who is this guy? I didn't know anything about him. He ends up being a damn near Pro Bowl caliber player.
Yeah.
This reminds me of that. This move could have the impact on the Browns defense that Pochich had, and they both came from Seattle. That Pochich had last year.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Harris knew, Okonkwo knew, Dalvin Tomlinson knew, Hurst, who they got from the 49ers, knew, Ika, the kid they drafted, knew, and I'm forgetting, who am I forgetting?
Did you say Obo?
Mo Hurst?
No, there's somebody I forgot.
Did you mention Obo?
Tristan Hill?
We know what's funny is, what's crazy is...
No, I'm forgetting one of their top pass rushers.
Zadarius Smith?
Zadarius Smith, I forgot, yeah.
They're going to have to wear the "Hello, my name is" patches.
I know. I mean, and that's why I want to see them play a lot.
And they need to play together.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm Jim Schwartz, I'm bending Kevin Stefanski's ear and saying, look, let me handle how much the defensive guys play because I need to work on my combinations, on my rotations. The defensive line is such a different beast than it used to be. Guys are shuffled in and out.
Yeah.
You might have 5 different combinations on one drive, depending on what it is you're trying to do on that particular play.
I like the fact, and plus they got some shifting they need to do in the secondary. You look at it, Greg Newsome was out. Denzel Ward was playing a lot of nickel. Like Tyvis talked about seeing him playing in the nickel coverage, in the nickel package. The question on defense for me is, I was surprised to see Anthony Walker and Taki both in practice hitting at this point.
Yeah.
I didn't think that they would be back that fast. How much do we see of those guys? Right. How much do we see of JOK? I didn't know he had the Liz Frank injury, which anytime that happens, that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's a bad.
It's a bad one. It's a pressure. Especially if you got screws in it. And I know he didn't have surgery. He elected to just let it heal. But to me, that's the question mark. Can we find another linebacker that kind of flashes in these preseason games where we say, oh, okay, well, we can bring Taki and Anthony Walker and Phillips back a little later, and we don't have to rush them. But I want to see who they got out there as far as their linebackers are concerned.
I got a question for you on that, though. If they're bringing in another linebacker, who's not making the 53-man roster? Where are you sacrificing a spot now to bring in an extra linebacker to squeeze them in?
Well, assuming that you keep JOK, Anthony Walker, Taki,
those guys are all
Phillips,
on the team.
Kanasic.
Phillips.
He would be the odd man out, right?
But he's a special teams guy.
He's a special teams
That's
ace.
true.
So they don't keep. How many linebackers did they keep last year?
5. And that's your 5 right there.
And by the way, I mean, we've been deprogrammed as Browns fans. Linebackers aren't important.
Yeah.
They're just not to this organization.
I think Kanasic's going to be on the team.
I do too.
Yeah.
Which leaves Fields.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't shown much.
Except for running into that kicker. But but then again, no one blocks punts. No one stop. No one blocks
Tyvis.
punts.
Stop it, Tyvis.
No one blocks punts, Tyvis. But yeah, I want to see if they got another linebacker. Because I don't like the feeling of bringing guys off the street. Like last year, that was just when they started bringing guys off the street, I was like, that was the downfall of the season.
Deion Jones and Reggie Ragland didn't do it for you, G?
Oh my God, Deion Jones.
Actually, Ragland had some moments.
Deion Jones signed a contract. He's with Carolina.
No kidding.
He got that bag. He played pretty well while he was here. But that is very fascinating. I'll give it to Andrew Bear on this tip. His draft picks might not play, but he is a wizard when it comes to free agency and picking guys up, with deals or signing and trading people. Think about it. The Zadarius Smith joint, he got for free. The Amari Cooper, he got him for free. You paid $5 million for this guy, and he's one of the top-rated defensive tackles. You got him for free. The only guys that they really spent huge money on, think about this. Javon Hargrove, right? They gave him I think he almost got $100 million.
80 mil.
They got Dalvin Tomlinson for how much?
Well, Tomlinson signed a very big. It's 54.
He signed for like 60, didn't he?
I think it was
54.
50s.
So 54, and the other dude signed for 5.
Shelby, so 60 for those two,
60
or 80
for
for
two
Hargrave.
in the top 20 defensive tackles, and they're both rated higher than Javon Hargrave. And he got 2 of them.
Insane.
Now, and just real quick, G, I'm not disagreeing with you. Hargrave had twice as many sacks as those two combined, and then 3 more, and that's what you get paid for.
That is what
you get paid for.
Yeah,
but
true.
your point is right.
That's
Andrew
the home
Berry
run. May
not have got the home run guy at the position, but he did a hell of a job
And
filling it with what
Hargrave's
he could.
PFF grade on the run, I believe, is a 48.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. It was
Tomlin's
Browns
run grade,
level.
though, wasn't great last year either.
No, it wasn't. It was like
Yeah.
50-something.
But now we got to see it on the field. We can talk about PFF grades and guys on paper. They got to show it. Mike's saying yesterday the Browns have the best defensive line in football. They got to show something on the field before they're the best
Yeah,
defensive
I'm
line
not
in football.
crowning anybody. If there's
Yeah,
one
I mean,
thing
come
that
on.
we've learned,
Yes.
nobody gets the crown until after the race is
No,
over.
that's right.
When you do something and you prove it, and I don't mean in the preseason either.
Right.
You saw the asterisk.
I'm going to put that out real quick. When you start stringing great performance after great performance together in the regular season, we'll start cleaning your head off for the crown.
That's right.
But nobody's getting it prematurely. I mean, obviously Chubb has it. He's earned it. Myles Garrett has it. He's earned it. Outside of that, we got a whole bunch of guys that got a whole lot to prove.
Yeah, 100%.
So I ask you guys, I was sitting there thinking, if those guys play up to their potential on the defensive side of the football, do you think that the defense has more potential than the offense?
Yes, I do.
That's crazy to me because
they-
we've never talked about that.
No, but they're loaded with potential.
Yeah, if they
got
play,
a bunch of guys
yeah.
that have done something in the past.
Yeah.
Can they do it together in the same place?
I mean, both sides of the ball have a ton of potential.
they really do.
So there's really no excuse for the Browns not to be a good football team. Now, the AFC still remains loaded. That hasn't changed.
No, I know.
No.
There's a lot of teams you could point to in the AFC that you can't just say, oh, they have potential on both sides. They've already proven it on both sides.
And so we agree, I think, that the big three is Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo, and probably in that order.
Yes.
If I had to ask you guys, which of those three would you most likely lay a wager on takes a step back this year?
Bills.
I think it's easy, Buffalo.
Yeah,
I
think it's
agree.
Bills, too.
Unless Burrow's injury is more serious, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But assuming the quarterbacks are all good for the season, I would agree on Buffalo.
Hey, one thing on Buffalo, we keep hyping up, and rightfully so, the hiring of Jim Schwartz at defensive coordinator.
Right.
One thing that's been overlooked in the grand scheme of the AFC, Leslie Frazier, the Bills' superstar defensive coordinator, didn't get hired for a head coaching job and said, I'm going to take a year off from coaching. So you look at their coaching staff.
Wow.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't.
Just
I didn't
like we're
realize
hyping
that.
up Jim Schwartz, the Bills lost Leslie Frazier, and he's not on another team. He's just taking a year away from football.
How did we miss that?
Yeah, I
Bad
didn't
job out of
realize
you
that.
guys.
I did not know that. Yeah, that's crazy. To me, I think it's the Andrew Luck syndrome, right? Like, I think Josh Allen is super talented, but I think they just use him way too much. Like yes, he's big, and yes, he can run people over, and yes, you can use him in the run game, but I just don't like the way that they play. Like, it's way too shotgun pass.
It's
happy.
one-dimensional.
I agree. They call too many design runs for him.
Yeah.
Way too
Like,
many.
I don't want him taking. I know
I don't
he's
either.
big, but I don't want you taking that many hits. Cam Newton was big too, and his career ended at 30 because
Right.
he took too many hits.
That's a fact.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
Cam Newton?
No.
I got in this argument with a friend the other day who was
No.
like, Cam Newton's definitely a Hall of Famer.
He was an MVP, and he played in the Super Bowl, but he needed...
Your friend should be checked into a mental hospital.
I
Yeah,
told
no,
him
that
I
is
think it was
one of the
one of his,
stupidest things I've ever heard.
one of his
Wasn't
worst
long
takes
enough.
ever.
Not even close.
For quarterbacks, it's way too difficult to get in now.
No.
Like, you talk about Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers might not even get in. Like, I mean,
I
Phillip-
personally
I think
would.
Phillip Rivers
I
will get
personally
in.
Phillip
wouldn't even
Rivers-
vote for Eli Manning. I know he's going to get in. I wouldn't
wrong.
vote for him.
Vote for
No,
Eli.
but I know he's going to
False. Propaganda.
get in. What's
Well,
propaganda? It's my opinion.
Mute Bulls Mike.
McNugget is
I
literally
know you love him,
the
and
president of the
I
fan
like him
club.
personally. I interviewed him once, and he was great. And I think I know he's going to get in the Hall of Fame, but I would not vote for him.
I mean,
that's
is
interesting.
is he better than, like, even Stafford? Stafford.
I don't know that Stafford's a Hall of Famer. I would take. I think Stafford and Rivers at their best are better than Eli.
facts. And Stafford won a
Don't
Super
be
Bowl.
biased.
Stafford
How
won
many
a Super Bowl.
playoff games did Eli win outside of his 2 Super Bowl runs?
0.
The same amount of rings that the Cincinnati Bengals have won in the entire history of their franchise.
That's fair.
Shots fired.
Those things don't bother me. That's fair. It's fair.
Yeah, it's true.
But,
So it has to be fair. If it's
That's
true.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I am fascinated by, look, his 2 Super Bowl runs were all-time great.
I know.
But I'm fascinated
you
by
ever
the
think
fact
when-
that outside of that, he never won a playoff
Did you
game.
ever think of him as a great? I always thought of him as a really good player, not elite.
You know what I thought of him as? I always felt sorry for him because he was Peyton's brother.
Yeah, well,
Because even though he had success,
Yeah.
and he wasn't, he had one of the best 32 jobs in the world.
Yeah.
The inevitable comparison to his brother was always going to leave him
Right.
in an inferior shadow.
I lied.
even as an entertainer, Peyton's better.
I lied.
Way better.
Yeah.
But
I
Eli
lied.
is sneaky
He's
funny.
sneaky funny. I agree.
But Peyton is just
McNuggets,
Yeah.
Brilliant funny.
McNuggets, he's in. He's in. I just thought about something.
He's a 2-time Super Bowl MVP.
Nobody's
that's why
arguing
he's
he
in.
won't be in.
So
that shouldn't be a reason you go to the Hall of Fame. by the way.
Jim
I
Kel-
hate that.
Jim Kelly is in, and he didn't win anything. Actually, you could say Jim Kelly was the 5th best quarterback in his era.
Oh, I think Boomer was better than Jim Kelly.
See, then you got Terry Bradshaw,
well, Marino never won either.
but that was
Marino was
but
way better than
Marino's in.
But
Marino was a better
was-
quarterback than any of these
but
guys.
damn,
who-
yeah.
Passing wise,
Yes,
you're
yes.
absolutely
I do
right.
agree.
So you had Montana, you had Marino that was better. Elway was better. Who am I missing in that one? That's the big
Boomer
three.
Esiason was in that era, but not better than
who?
Jim Kelly.
I take Boomer over Jim Kelly, but this
Oh,
is
I
my
wouldn't.
opinion.
I wouldn't.
Nah, I can't take.
I mean, let's think about it, guys. Now, I know he lost all 4, but he taking your team to 4 straight Super Bowls.
Yeah.
He had
I believe it's unprecedented. Has anybody else ever
Agreed.
done that?
He's a great player. He had an immense talent around
By
him,
the
too.
way, Warren Moon.
He did. He had other
Hall of
Hall of Fame
Famers.
players around
Now
him.
Warren Moon was better.
Warren Moon was great.
Warren Moon
That's 5
threw for
people.
A ton of yards, man.
Man, them Oilers. I just remember.
And sadly, wasted years in the CFL.
Sure did.
Or his numbers would have been even bigger.
Sure would have.
I love that era of quarterbacks.
Oh, it was
to
great.
me, that was the golden era. I mean, when you look at all of those guys, all came into the league together.
Yep.
They were, they were so good.
You know, it's so impressive. Like, when I got a chance to see Bernie again, I can't get over this. This man was calling his own plays. Like, that's laughable. Like
that was the last era that did it.
like these guys, and then I would talk to him. And he said, "Yeah, we come up and I wanted to switch to a run." And Kevin Mack was there as he got inducted, and he was just saying how Bernie was. That was off the cuff.
Sure.
He start with something. He asked somebody what y'all wanted. I'm like, it don't make that. That shows me a different level of intellect.
Nowadays, guys can't wipe their ass without getting something.
No,
No.
They got a quarterback in their ear.
Although there are some very smart quarterbacks. That
No
are
doubt.
in the league
No
right now.
doubt.
And
Yeah.
matter of fact, I would go so far as to say there are plenty of quarterbacks that are capable of calling
Yes.
their own plays.
Yes, I agree.
I think the league wrestled that power out of their
Yes.
hands because there were so many that were incapable of
That's
calling
right.
their own
Right,
plays.
right.